Alrighty, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today, Tuesday, the 28th of November, UTC time of 18:30. We are the SIG Docs community meeting, which happens every 2 weeks. And I am your host, Natalie Vlatko. I'm one of the SIG Docs chairs. And unfortunately, our other co-chairs couldn't join us today as they're all a little busy. So I'll be trying to run the meeting and take some notes myself. But if someone wants to put their hand up as a note taker, that'd be great. That would be a huge help. I know we've got some new folks here on the call, so I'll go through today's meeting with a bit more kind of extra explanations of what we do here so that everyone knows what's going on. But firstly, I want to just quickly share the meeting agenda. I'm going to share my screen as well, but it is in the specific chat there if you want to open it on your own. Let me just share now. Alrighty. Having said that, we've got a couple of folks who might be new to this meeting. We'll go through our usual agenda here. The first point being that given this is a Kubernetes meeting, a community meeting specifically, we do abide by the Kubernetes Code of Conduct, which generally summarized is for us to be kind and respectful to one another. And that counts not only in meetings like this, but also in Slack, in PRs, in issues, GitHub discussions, all kinds of ways that we collaborate and work together. The Kubernetes Code of Conduct always applies. If you think you've got an issue that you want to report to the Code of Conduct Committee, you can do so by emailing conduct@kubernetes.io. We definitely recommend if you've got any questions or concerns to reach out to that group. They are very helpful, very open with questions and answers, and very open to hearing about any concerns that you might have. All right, with that being the case, and we know we've got some newbies on the call. Is anyone who's new would like to unmute and introduce themselves?
Okay, so I can go, hoping that I am audible. Hi everyone, my name is Ruchi Kumari and I am a pre-final undergraduate student from India, and I'm a full stack developer, and I recently joined Kubernetes and I started contributing in SysDocs, and one of my PR got merged today. It was related to HTTP prop. So yeah, I'm really excited to contribute here and looking forward to do some great contribution and learn from you all. Thank you.
That's awesome. Hi, Suruchi, welcome. Thank you so much for attending and saying hi. And congratulations on your first PR getting merged. That's an awesome milestone. We look forward to many more contributions. So I can see that you're also already in the SIG Docs channel, which is great. So yeah, definitely keep a lookout for more ways that you can contribute. But welcome. Thank you so much for saying hello. Anybody else that's new who wants to say hello? Going once, going twice. Alrighty. Big thank you to you, Suruchi, and for anyone else who is on the call or maybe watching later on in the video, in the recording. Feel free to add your name if you're a new contributor to the meeting agenda and saying hi. For folks who wonder how to get access to the agenda in order to add discussion points, if you are part of the SIG Docs mailing list, you should be able to have access to the meeting agenda. So that's a tip for anyone who's looking for that now. Alrighty, in SIG Docs, we have a couple more things that we go through in meetings. And the first one, as an update and reminder, is for this week's PR Wrangler. The PR Wrangler in SIG Docs is a role that we have where every week someone who's an approver is assigned to try and help push through contributions that we are getting in our specific SIG, so that reviews can happen, so that PRs can get merged. And this is especially important during towards the end of a release cycle. This week's PR Wrangler is Nate, who's just waved to us here. And Nate is being shadowed by Satya and Xander. And specifically, I believe that there's a request for additional approvers for the following week. For some reason,
yes,
Yes,
Not the
next
following
week. Go
week,
ahead.
this week. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm going to be traveling. So, well, not unfortunate. I'm traveling, and I will be sort of away for fully half the shift. I'm flying out on Thursday morning. So if my apologies. So if other approvers are able to jump in post Thursday for the remainder of the shift, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, that would be helpful. I've also got I'll be working with Xander and Satyam. You see, I shouldn't have even tried. Satyam Sony. I've already reached out to both of them. We've got a training thing set up next week, so or rather this next Wednesday. So there will be some help, but actually getting things approved and pushed through is going to be hard starting Thursday.
All right, thanks. I should be able to help out for the latter part of the week. And I know Divya is also back from general travels, but I can also check with Divya to see that too, just to get a different time zone updates there. But yeah, thanks. No worries, Nate. We can definitely get you covered. Cool. For note for other PR wranglers, either on the call or watching, next week's PR wrangler is Anna Young, and then the following week we have Ray Lahano, who's one of our other co-chairs. As a note, PR wranglers, please remember to check your shifts. Not that there's many left for the rest of the year, given that the last 2 weeks of the year will be holiday season and we won't have active reviewers on due to the break. As a quick note, we will be working on the list for PR wrangling for next year. That's something that's going to be happening in the next, hopefully, week or so. So that agenda will be up and information will be up soon. But keep your lookout for that, and we'll notify everyone in the SIG Docs channel when that takes place. Alrighty, moving on to our agenda, I will cut straight to release 129. Well, I won't be cutting it just yet, but let's talk about status. We've got the docs team status coming from Drew. After you.
Yeah, so we're currently set to red because the deadline is today. There are 3 pull requests that are left in review. We have reached out to all the KEP owners to get all of them merged today. So all 3 are actively being reviewed or waiting for approval. Kat, I'm curious if you have anything more to add. I know that you've been working really hard to engage with the KEP owners.
Yeah, so 2 of them are one Tim is actively going back and forth with, so that one is like fully in progress. And I've also reached out to the SIG lead that is associated with that KEP, so like they are aware that that's the one that I'm concerned about. There is another that is awaiting review from Tim, having addressed feedback that he left. And the last one also has LGTM and is waiting for approval from, who is this? Karen Bradshaw, who I have reached out to but have not heard back from. So I may need somebody else to take over the bot assigned approver role for that particular PR, if she doesn't get back to me before I go to bed.
That's totally fine. Feel free to put those PRs directly in SIG Docs and just tag a few of us, Kat, and we can just jump on that because the review deadline is now.
Okay.
That's totally fine. Tim, you've got your hand up. Go for it.
Yeah, waiting on review from Tim is, I don't know, like it jumps out to me. We always assign 2 reviewers. Like the bot should be always assigning 2 reviewers. So nothing should ever be waiting for LGTM from just me. And also,
in this case, it's that you had been going back and forth with this one particular person. So since you appeared to have been particular about this specific PR, I didn't want to have somebody rock in and say, no, Tim bad.
Cool. Let me explain how I would like to explain how I see this thing.
Sure.
What I want to happen is that a review is like saying, okay, this is great, this is great, this is great. You need to fix this. This is great. Anyone else who's a reviewer should be able to look at the you need to fix this and work out when it's done. And if that isn't clear, the reviewer, that's me, has done a bad job explaining what needs to be fixed.
Okay.
But I'd like you to all believe that if you look at a review by me or by anyone and you think it's fixed, you have the psychological safety to go, yeah, I believe this fix is someone else, even though I didn't request a change.
Okay. Gotcha. Then I will go look at the one PR myself, and then I'll still need like somebody other than me to approve it, but I can LGTM it if it looks good.
Great. Kat, as you know, I'm a time zone ahead of you. Tim is in yours, but then we also have Nate on the call, and I know Red's around. So there's a few of us throughout the time zone break that can help out.
I will absolutely be handing these off to Nate and others in US time zones when I go to bed.
Awesome. Great. Thanks so much, folks. Anything else on docs? Also, big shout out to appreciate that, 3 PRs left ready for review. It's a very small number in comparison to this time last time. So huge, amazing applause for the really, really great work, but also big congrats on just generally still having the psychological safety, hopefully, to say, hey, we're in red because we're not there yet. Yeah, thanks so much. But yeah, 3 left. We're really close to the finish line. This is awesome. Thank you so much for your hard work, folks. Yeah. And yeah, big also claps to Drew and any other docs folks on the call. Comms, let's keep the congrats going. Comms are in yellow, and Kristen, I believe you're giving the update.
Yes, hello. So for today, our update is we are in yellow. The feature blogs are in review, and we have dates assigned, publication dates assigned to those, and you can view those on our project board. We are, for the release blog, we're working through the feedback and gathering some remaining stragglers from for content from the SIGs. And then there's just a couple notes about the live webinar. We're working on scheduling that with CNCF, and the press interviews, of course, that's subject to change if the release gets delayed. I also believe Carol had some questions about some dates. So Carol, if you're on the call, if you want to jump in.
Okay. Yes, I think our main concerns is about that we will update the new order that also Tim suggested, like I think 1 week, 2 weeks ago, that we will work today in this new order about I think order the main themes to general available to beta and alpha. Because right now it's not, maybe you can comment about this thing if you think that it's a good ordering to put all the list of the main themes that we already have in the main blog.
1 second, could you clarify the order from, do you mean the order of
the features, because we
the
have
order of
several
features.
main themes, several features that we talk about in the main release blog.
Mm-hmm.
And we have these suggestions of things that, because I order first by 6 storage, 6
Yep.
and it will be better the order like for the, I don't know, we were thinking like first put the general available, beta and alpha. Yeah, I think this is my questions. What
Understood. So just to repeat, you're wondering, usually the order of features go via SIG in alphabetical order?
Yeah, even for Kat's that she already was from comms, communication. I don't know how it will be the best to order the features, these main themes.
Do you have a strong opinion, Kat, whether to go via SIGs or via how well released things are, or like what stage at release things are?
Let me see what I did. I think both have merit.
Yeah.
Let me go see where that is.
Okay.
Search.
Yeah, and think, because you already suggest that the order is, it's not it's not common to order by 6. And what do you think to order maybe by general available and beta and alpha? What is your opinion? Okay, I like it.
So
and maybe highlight in the beginning the main themes. Like I see some discussions that maybe we are moving the package to some deprecations, and maybe this highlight at the beginning, but in general the order will be like general available, beta and alpha. in this?
So it looks like mine, for the sections of the main blog that I actually like wrote content for, so the major themes section, those are not in any particular order beyond what seemed the flashiest, like what was the most impactful. I ordered them by importance, not by SIG or by their actual release status. Further on in the blogs, in the other updates section, I went graduations to stable and then deprecations and removal. I'm dropping a link in the Zoom chat so you can see what I mean, and I will also link it in the agenda for you. But yeah, these were not ordered by SIG or by what stage they were in. It was ordered by importance. By my opinion of importance, it's worth noting. So
Yeah,
so use your best
hard.
judgment.
Yeah, that's the reason that it's hard to order. Like, yeah, I will try to pick up like top
Yeah.
three maybe about this, what is really important, break out some breaks. But
Yeah.
in general, I will try to put in this order because it's
Yeah,
difficult.
if you need help figuring it out, just DM me and I'll be happy to help you decide.
Yeah. No, yeah, thank you.
Great. Thanks for asking, Carol. It does sound like there is a bit of consensus for your current thinking in terms of labeling via what's available in beta alpha, but at the same time, it also what sounds like your prerogative in terms of how do you think you and the team should kind of order that. So hopefully that's helpful for you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we have a part, especially with theme, because I was very worried about in the new order, but I will commit it this new order to in the main release in the blog to be reviewed. Okay.
Awesome. Thanks, Carol. And thanks, Kristen. Any other updates from comms?
I just wanted to say thanks to Kat for helping us out to schedule the CNCF webinar and press release. We didn't have a lot of information on how to word that, so that was super helpful.
You're so welcome.
To reach out to a former lead for comms. Thank you, Kat.
Awesome. Does that sound like something that needs to go in the handbook if it's not already there, I wonder?
Yeah, definitely. I am taking notes about this, and after doing this, because right now my priority is finish the blog and this, and before the retro, I am taking notes of all of this to improve the communication handbook. Don't worry, it's I will do it.
No worries at all. Yeah, but definitely something that even adding that to the retro is good for next time. This information being in the handbook and then updating that as needed. That'd be great. Thanks everyone. Also, big thanks to the comms team for the consistent updates and also just the stages that you're updating and being open to not always being green and showing that status. That's also really great. So thanks everyone. Thank you. Okay, the other big release date of note, I guess, that I want to kind of put here is the 5th of December, which is the current day of the release. But we do have a discussion point around this that I'll just quickly mention now, which is that at the moment, due to the publishing bot currently not working, there may be a delay with the release. But that information is not set in stone just yet. We are waiting for some more updates. I've linked under the discussion point area the thread that some of that information is contained there. We'll know more in the next day or two, but I just want to kind of assure folks that everyone community-wise that needs to know, including docs and comms leads and so on, and release folks do know and are following. And so we'll be keeping up to date with this, especially those of us specifically helping out with docs and the freezing of the website. We'll make sure that we keep everyone up to date so all of that information is clear if there is a delay. So that's a big if, but we'll keep the community updated in the specific channels and definitely in SIG docs as well. Okay. Thanks everyone from Team 129 for your updates. We're really at the finish line now. This is really great, and hope to help out over the next hours and days to make sure that everything is set for whichever day ends up being the release, currently 5th of December, but let's see. Going down to the next part of our agenda, I want to just quickly pause because we don't have any issues and PRs listed in the agenda, but does anyone have any now that they'd like to bring up before we continue? Big silence could mean no. I'll give another minute or seconds in case someone's typing, but I don't think so. All right, we'll keep moving. If a PR or issue does come up if by the time our meeting ends, feel free to pop it into the SIG Docs channel as usual, and we can try and have a look at those later on today. Okay, last part of the discussion point, if we keep moving on to our agenda, I've already mentioned possible delay in the release, but I wanted to open up a discussion that looks like we can possibly close our meeting with, which is something that myself and Kat actually have briefly chatted to about, which is the idea of a possible exceptions process for docs. Now, for folks who aren't familiar, as part of the release, we have very strict deadlines in certain areas of the release, and enhancements has a very strict deadline as to when they should be included or not. And there is an exceptions process around whether that deadline can be possibly extended or breached, or things are kind of approved that are later than the deadline. And interestingly, we're thinking about, would that kind of process be possibly helpful for docs? I'd love to hand it over to you, Kat, for a little bit more context if you'd like to chat about your current experience with release and maybe others prior as well. And I'm so sorry, you're muted.
Thank you. I've noticed that people tend to treat the deadlines for the docs teams as soft. They are not. They're not any softer than the deadlines for enhancements freeze or code freeze, but people do treat them that way. And the result is that the day before and the day of a docs deadline on the release team is miserable and stressful for the docs subteam. And I'm sure it's also miserable and stressful for SIG docs, because things get piled on top of you all at once when they very much shouldn't. I spent my entire weekend and yesterday and today actively chasing down doc owners and CAP owners and SIG leads, and that should not be necessary. So I suggest that we introduce an exceptions process for SIG docs and for the doc subteam, exactly like we have for enhancements, and move the deadlines back a little bit. The first deadline for the doc subteam is PR placeholders. Those take a minute to open. It's literally just an empty placeholder PR against the dev branch for the version. I think that we can move that up a little bit closer to enhancements freeze so that we can then move back the PR ready to review deadline, and thus the PRs merged deadline. The fact that the PRs merged deadline today is so close to the actual release means that we have very, very little wiggle room to offer people an extension. And considering how notoriously people leave docs for the last, it makes me uncomfortable not having the space to offer somebody an extra day or two. Tim, you've got your hand up.
I want to clarify that when you say move back, you mean move earlier. Yes,
move it away from the release, move it earlier in the release. Sorry, I apologize. But yes, do it last week. I don't know, last week, even earlier than that. But yes, I want it moved further away in the back in time direction from the release date. And I suspect that having that formal exception process will force people to take the docs deadlines just a touch more seriously. And hopefully will at least give us a heads up on how long people are going to be late. I had to offer a couple of extensions at the PR's ready to merge deadline, and one of them was ignored by somebody who should know better than to ignore that.
Kat, with that, I've got one question, which is that with the enhancements process, with the exception process for enhancements, there's also a whole process around how approval or denial gets kind of done. Is that something that the release docs team would own in your mind? How would that work?
I think that just like we handle it with enhancements exceptions, it is a joint effort between docs and the release lead and public commenters in the SIG release channel, which should include comments from people from SIG docs, ideally. But the enhancements freeze exception process is just the lead and the enhancements lead making that decision.
Happy to invite other comments, questions from folks in the room. Just want another quick double check, Kat. Are you looking for a possible general consensus? And then I guess the next step would be bringing this up in the retro?
Yes, I would like to bring this up in the retro, but I want to be able to say whether or not this is actually useful to SIG docs. So is this going to help you plan and distribute work better? Is this going to give you at least like a better idea of how much work is coming? Do you feel that we need more room between the docs freeze and the actual release? Like, is this useful for you, or is it only useful for me as the docs lead?
Tim and Nate in particular, I'd love you to speak up if you have an opinion here.
I'm always clamoring for more time, but I'm trying to think, because it's whatever the deadline is, there's always going to be a bunching around that deadline.
Always, yes.
Right. So it's there's always going to be an amount of work. So I'm not like again, I like the idea of having more time there, but I'm just trying to think of what are the knock-ons, because it's kind of in my experience that it doesn't really matter what the deadline is. People are going to whiff on it a little bit.
For sure. Some people absolutely will, no matter what.
So, Tim, have you got?
Yeah, I like this idea, and I will explain my opinions or whatever on how I'm hearing it. I think we should do exactly what Kat says, and I think we should hand exceptions out like candy. I'm going to explain why I think that and so on. We want people to ship features. We don't really want to stop and gatekeep, and actually, we don't want to yank code that people have written and say, you've written a code, but it's not going to ship. So the exceptions should be handed out like candy, but they should be something that we show up in the retros. Like, SIG something has, all of the docs were late, and you asked for exceptions just like last release, and you missed your exception deadline as well. We shipped your code, but let's have a conversation about that. It's an obvious signal. And we would go to SIG something and say, there's a problem here. You're, putting a thing on docs. And it'd be good to have that conversation just with the SIGs where we really need to have it, rather than, that bunching thing makes it really hard to show up, but, whatever. And the other thing
you want to use it as a health check.
Kind of a health check. But there's another thing, which is like engagement. So, you'd kind of want a SIG lead, a tech lead, or a chair to be requesting it or supporting the exemption. So it's a signal back to the SIG leadership to say, hey, it makes it visible. The SIG that you run has got a health problem here. And do you sign up to this? And just labeling things as, you missed the first deadline and you needed to ask for an exception. Probably means we don't have to have that retro in the first place, because it's a bit awkward asking for an exemption. It feels bad asking for a second exemption the next release, and so we won't have to. People will correct for without us telling them to. And the happy path, of course, is we're not handing these out like we should hand them out like candy, but we don't want to be handing any of them out, because the happy path is that stuff arrives on time.
Yeah, I was also thinking that adding in the process adds in that additional kind of, if we miss this deadline, we have to do this extra work on top of this work we kind of don't want to maybe do. Maybe that's the kind of mindset that possibly is there. And so I do like that as a kind of a forcing function. I do very openly, I do often worry about some folks who maybe don't treat docs as importantly as others and would not care about those extra gates in the first place. But then I guess the question would be, you're saying, Tim, that we don't want to gate code, but I'm also wary of an exception process that doesn't have teeth or consequences either, especially on repeat offenders where we say, oh, okay, whatever, but maybe that continues happening.
Well, can I speak to that and say, we should hand them out, liberally, but I think grounds like this is your third release is like, no, I think you better pull your code this time would be entirely justified, especially if we've had a conversation like we're not going to keep doing this all the time. And anything where we feel that the actual impact on end users, like things graduating to stable without docs, things graduating to stable with the docs still look alpha. If we are worried that people will actually run their clusters insecurely, or we SIG docs will be flooded with issues, which we addressed with the Docker shim removal, but if the removal of Docker shim is an example of something where we would have said, actually, we kind of did. We actually kicked that a few releases back because the original schedule wasn't ready to be done. And as a project, we managed that. It's the same kind of thing. Sometimes we're going to impose a cost on end users in terms of just to keep running Kubernetes, you are going to have to learn a thing and do a thing. And if we haven't explained as a project what that thing is and how you need to do it, we should be really wary of making a change.
Nate, I think you have something you want to add?
No, I was just thinking I'm still stuck on the sort of the timing of everything. I like your addition, Tim. I think that exceptions being handed out liberally is particularly in the first couple of releases that we run this. I think that's a very good sort of tool for us, and sort of watching and seeing sort of how things shift. But I almost wonder if we should try a couple of different date not formats, but different date cadences may also help. It's like, okay, well, let's try this one 2 weeks ahead, or let's try this 1 week ahead, just to try and sort of see what the balance is. I'm all for trying something like this. I think it's interesting.
Yeah, I'm a big plus one too. I mean, I'm biased because Kat and I discussed it before, so I'm a plus for this process. I think your suggestion, Nate, around like the dates, kind of like trying those out. I think actually the timing of the next couple of releases is a great way to actually time for that, rather than a release close to holiday season and KubeCon. Like I would want to avoid trying things for the first time then, versus we've got 2 releases coming up that we could do so in. On top of being a big plus one for this, what I'm also a plus one for, which is more a process thing that can be discussed later, but we're just discussing things like, handing them out like candy, or noting down information about how maybe certain SIGs are constantly missing deadlines and having to constantly put in exceptions. In the handbook, I would want us to document actually that we would be doing that, and that's a consequence, and that also that your code could be pulled if you're a constant bad actor in this process as well. And I think as long as we're being explicit about stating like what this process could mean, I think it's great.
It also gives us an opportunity to in some of the other work I've done in another area of my work, I've got several folks who are consistently late on certain things, and that's fine. Maintainers are busy, but what noting this type of stuff down gives me is the opportunity to build in some contingency plans and speak with these folks and say, hey, we've got a history of being late here. What can we do to help, and what can we do to try and find even before we get to the point where we're stopping code, right? Like we're saying, okay, we're going into this. We know that this particular KEP has been delayed 3 times due to docs, or twice due to docs. It gives us the opportunity to say, okay, well, what's actually going on here before we sort of say, before it escalates to a point where we're saying, we're giving a hard no.
Oh yeah, definitely. I just think having the possible escalation process already out in front of people, so that when they read that and they know at the end, this could mean our feature is held back, possibly.
Well,
But
that's always been like I think the docs release team has always retained that prerogative, where like they've always said, look, if the docs aren't ready, you're I don't know if we've ever actually blocked, but I think we've always
Dockershim, Nate.
Oh
but
yeah,
we
yeah,
kind of,
yeah.
you know that story.
Yeah, right, of course, that one. But yeah, so I mean, like it's always that has always been there. But I think that sort of the recording is the new piece of information that we're suggesting here that I think could be very interesting.
Did you want to add something else, Tim?
It was a question. So there might be some people on this call who are involved outside of dogs in Kubernetes. So, maybe you contribute to another SIG, maybe you write code, maybe you're have non-code contributors like project management. So I would love to hear your contributions, especially if your thoughts are, I don't like this process or I have a concern. Please feel like this is a great time to speak up if you have those thoughts.
Wolfie, yeah, go for it.
Thank you. Yeah, no, this all sounds very good. One thing I was thinking that might help if there are any sort of visible metrics like a dashboard, basically using the sunlight effect to make visible who and how many exceptions are granted and received.
Currently, no, as far as I'm aware of. This is something that you could get by watching the dev mailing list or the release team mailing list, but we don't make a dashboard out of this. And as far as I'm aware, we don't actually store this information anywhere other than Slack and emails to the mailing list where the exception requests are sent.
So exceptions do get added to the GitHub repo for a release after the fact, but it's a completely manual thing. The release lead collects the exceptions. I think it potentially brings up a good case to maybe moving to something like a Google form for exceptions, and then it would all be automatically tracked and like available in one data source.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes me think that this could be, let's say, a sheet that SIG docs overall owns, or maybe it's the release docs team owns, in order to be able to update that kind of thing, and then act on the data of this SIG seems to constantly miss deadlines or go for exceptions, etc. Now it's time for us to reach out and try and help with that, because I agree we need to keep this data somewhere in order to actually act on what we're all speaking about, which is helping SIGs adhere to these deadlines generally.
Yeah, +1.
Anyone else?
A bunch of the data we would collect here is such stuff that is essentially an input to Contribex, the contributor experience SIG, really, because if a SIG isn't kind of working as a healthy SIG, that's the place the signal needs to go, I think, anyway.
Okay. I don't think it's going to be solved in this meeting where, like, how does that then process look like after? But I agree that that's something that we can share with Contribex if, first of all, maybe they're interested rather than telling them this is their work. But yes, I agree. I think that's another good spot too. Anyone else on the call wants to raise a hand or chat about this? Not seeing any hands or hearing anyone. But a big thank you to everyone who's given their opinions here. Kat, I think you are seeing a general consensus of yes from the SIG, which is great. And then what that looks like process-wise, obviously, to be like figured out at a later date. But I'll definitely attend the retro in order to kind of help with that possible thing that with that line item you'll speak to, and being there as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, consider this a thumbs up from us. All right. Woo. Okay. I'm a big fan of people treating docs as important, so I think this is going to be great. All right. We have reached the end of our agenda. Big thanks for everyone for contributing and attending and taking part. Does anyone have anything else that they'd like to bring up for today's meeting before we close it? Going once, going twice. Alrighty, looks like no, which is great. Everyone gets to end the meeting on time. It is usually only a 45-minute block. We have been going for an hour lately, so glad to end sort of on time for everyone. Big thanks again to everyone contributing and taking part. Huge thanks and congrats to the docs and comms teams for all the work that they've been doing for this release. The end of year release is always a tough one given holidays and the KubeCon schedule. So a huge thank you to all the work that you're all putting in. Hopefully we'll have some great updates about everything being fine and dandy very soon. Kat and Carol and Kristen, feel free to tag folks that need tagging or people that need to have their eyes on things in the assorted channels as needed. Us as reviewers and approvers are at your disposal to make sure things get over the line. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your evening and or day, wherever you are in the world, and take care until next time.
Thanks,
Later,
everyone.
y'all.
Bye.
Bye.